society out of such a pre-linguistic, pre-institutional form of reality, such as we find today among our primate relatives. We share, 98% of the DNA with chimpanzees, so we can see ourselves in an earlier form, or at least some aspect of ourselves, in primate societies. All right, now we want to know, number one, how do you get language out of such a system? Now, for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about the nature of language, and it will sound like I'm trying to do a speculative history of linguistic development. I'm not. The question is a conceptual question. The question is, what do you have to add to pre-linguistic intentionality to get language? Or if you like, take us and subtract language. What have you subtracted? Now, those are the essential features of language that I'm going to explain. Well, you have these primates running around in the woods, presumably in Europe, in northern Europe, and they don't have a language. Eventually they got a language. What happened in between, nobody knows, and we may never know precisely because of the absence of fossil evidence. You can't tell from the fossils how much language the people had. I visited a prehistoric community, Totavel, in the south of France, and I asked the people there, the people who run the museum, did the inhabitants have language? And they said yes. I said, how do you know? And they said, well, the brains were big enough. The brains were big enough to accommodate Broca's area and Wernicke's area. That's an extremely, I mean, that whales have much bigger brains, but in any case, I thought that was an extremely inadequate basis for the inference. Anyway, we did get language. What did we get when we got it? And just to be brief here, I'm going to say we got three features: meaning, convention, and syntax. And I'm going to explain each of those very briefly because I want to get to society. Society is my main topic. What's the difference between saying something and meaning it and saying it without meaning it? Wittgenstein often asks us questions like that because he wants to remind us that meaning does not name an introspective process like feeling anxiety or feeling pain. But all the same, there is a difference between saying something and meaning it and saying it without meaning it. And I'll imagine existing languages to illustrate the point. If I'm practicing French, I might say il pleut, over and over as a way of practicing French, and people around me might become annoyed. They might say, it's not raining, you idiot, you're just standing in the shower, or something like that. And then I would say, well, I didn't mean it, I was just practicing. But if I go outdoors in the rain, and I say there, il pleut, what's the difference? I mean, there clearly is a difference, and I want to say that difference can be stated very simply. In the case of saying something without meaning it, I intend to produce a sound. I intend to produce the French sentence, il pleut. And that production is the condition of satisfaction of my intention. But if I say it and mean it, if I say il pleut and mean that it's raining, then I intend that the sound that I produce should itself have conditions of satisfaction. It should have truth conditions. I am now committed to the truth of the proposition that it's raining. So we can say in general that meaning something by an action is a matter of intentionally imposing conditions of satisfaction on conditions of satisfaction. If I make a gesture, that's the condition of satisfaction of my intention to make the gesture. But if it's a meaningful gesture, I'm signaling to somebody, then the conditions of satisfaction of my initial intention must themselves have further conditions of satisfaction. That is a remarkable achievement. Not all animals can do it. In fact, rather few species of animals can do it. Okay, now the second feature that human beings have to have once they've got meaning before they get language is convention. If you have a conventional device, then you can do something that is, again, stunning. You can communicate because your conspecifics, your fellow humans, will be able to recognize what you're doing because you share with them the convention. So you say fire, danger, rain, food, you say any one of those, and they will know what information you're conveying because they understand the convention. They understand that there's a convention governing the use of these expressions. So if you've got meaning and convention, you're well on the way to language. But then comes the third absolutely remarkable feature, and that is syntax. It is a remarkable thing about human languages, and some animal languages, though not very many, that they don't just have sentences, one-word sentences, but they have sentences with internal syntactic structures. In the case of human beings, we have sentences that enable us to distinguish the noun, where we can distinguish the noun phrase from the verb phrase. And we even have recursive rules that enable us to add things to the sentence, like relative clauses. Now, all of that is going to be essential for the creation of human society, but these are the three features that I want you to keep in mind. You have to have meaning, you have to have convention by which the meaning is communicated from the speaker to the hearer, and you have to have an internal syntactic structure, and that gives you a vastly increased power because now your audience can understand sentences they've never heard before. That is, you're now beyond cases like rain, fire, danger, water, food, where you have one-word sentences, but you can now build complex sentences. And you can now build sentences where you say things like, the animal is coming nearer, the animal is going further away, there are two animals on the left. And in each case, the hearer will be able to understand what the speaker means, even if the hearer has never heard the sentence before, because syntax gives you a principle of compositionality. The meaning of the whole sentence is a compositional function of the meanings of the elements together with their syntactical structure. Okay, now I hope all of those points are familiar, but I want to just repeat that in language we've now got meaning, convention, and internal syntax, and those enable us to undertake acts that are communicative, where the hearer will be able to understand what the speaker says, even though the hearer has never heard the sentence before. Okay, now that's the apparatus, and I'm now going to turn to the nature of human society. What is it that we're trying to explain, and what is the explanation? I'll stop and take a drink of water. Now, I want to make sure everybody can hear me all right, and I'm very grateful that people are willing to listen to a lecture in a language that's not their own. I could never do it myself, and I enormously admire people who are willing and able to do it, and I am blessed by something I didn't deserve, the fact that I can go anywhere in the world and lecture in English. I mean, I'm sure God did not intend that every educated person should speak English, but that seems to be how it turned out, and it suits me just fine. No doubt our grandchildren will be speaking Chinese or Spanish, but in any case, right now we all speak English. Let's keep it up. Okay. I'm now going to explain the nature of human society, given what I've said about language. Now, what's the puzzle? Well, I mean, philosophers begin with puzzles and paradoxes. And the nature of the puzzle, there are a number of puzzles, but one can be put this way. In the case of society, there are objective facts that only are the facts they are because we think that's what they are. Now, this is a stunning fact. Human subjectivity creates a kind of objectivity, and there's a a simple way to illustrate that